human nature is undefeated. What does that mean? Well, human nature. People have a nature of them, and they're always going to do what they're going to do, and they never lose.
Wow, you mentioned multiple times about leading people. Leading people sometimes is not easy at all. And you all the way high up as a CEO is probably even way more challenge than people just being like, oh, a manager, a director, or partner. And so I'm just curious, as based on your experience from leading people, what did you learn? What did you feel like is the most difficult thing to lead people, to motivate people to do what you think they should do, or to help them see what you seeing? Because sometimes it's not easy.
Oh, it's not sometimes. Every time it's not easy. I guess there's a couple of things in what you said. One, they don't need to see what you see. In my mind, they need to trust you that what you see is possible. That's one. You can't make them do it exactly the way you do it because they're not you. That's one. And then two, the idea that people come together to achieve something is fascinating because everybody's different.
Yeah, you mentioned about one of the key point it is change people's mindset. And yes, you mentioned that it's so difficult. I'm just curious if you can just share some tips and advice. What did you do to change people's mindset, human's nature? Because it's probably one of the biggest challenge when you lead people.
Changing somebody's mindset or their nature, as you say, is hard, and you need to find small wins, small items, and leverage them. I intentionally reorganized certain aspects of the firm to prove that we could do it differently because we had had so much success over the years doing it one way, and I knew that we couldn't continue to do it that way. And I was asking people to change 20 years of performance or 20 years of activity, and I was asking them to trust me.
I really like that method. You start from small and
Yeah,
then go bigger and bigger and bigger. And also
yeah,
you set example as well, like this individual was successful, and so it means that other people would be the same. So that's you building trust in people. I really like how you do it. You trust your vision and people follow your lead. I think that makes
yeah.
you a great leader. I love it.
That didn't, and despite all of that, and despite the incremental progress, they still thought I was crazy. They still thought I was crazy. Yet they were willing to come along for the ride because there was something about what we were doing.
Yeah, and also when you were at Baker Tilly, you also create the trademark break the mold. Can you explain more about that meaning, break the mold?
I created that trademark when I left Baker Tilly. During my tenure at Baker Tilly, we did use that as a rally cry, calling card, an excitement builder, so that people understood what they were doing. They weren't just changing a system or changing a practice or changing a habit. They were doing something much bigger, and that is they were breaking the mold of how firms had operated for so long. And so getting people to focus more on the vision and the mission is critical because human nature, people are predisposed to concentrate on the small things.
That's so interesting. Wow. I love that concept. And I have to admit that I'm a very typical accountant and I'm very detail oriented. And so I like small thing over and over. So I feel like as being an accountant, I see that challenge for myself, and I see probably a lot of typical accountants out there. They probably face the same, that not all accountants have a big vision, like can see the big picture. We like to see very small tiny picture,
Sure,
and then we
sure.
fix the issues and say yes, it's done, but then we forgot that it's like
Yeah.
nothing comparing with the big picture.
Right, right, right. Look, so we had quite a bit of success in doing that. People loved the idea of being part of a movement. They loved the idea of being part of something bigger than themselves. I often talk about strategy, and this falls right in line here. I believe that all things lead to and from strategy.
Wow, I like how you use the word strategies. And so, from my understanding, when you have strategies, you just create a plan to succeed. And so, how do you know that you create the right strategy for your career path or for your plan, for your goal?
Well, many people confuse, Rosie, they confuse strategies with plans. A strategy is a manifesto. A strategy is a description of what you want to build or be in the future. I want to be a partner in a firm, or my strategy is to be the best in my profession. Then you put a plan together to become that best, meaning whether it's development or it's learning or what have you.
Oh, so I'm one of those people that I was confused before this conversation that I thought strategies means you make plan. So now strategies is what and then plan it is how. I will remember that.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Since you talk to so many successful people, including your friends, your clients, I'm just wondering what are the main characteristics that you find in these successful people?
Well, always wanting more, always having a vision of something that's beyond where they are today, the ability to communicate and articulate their strategy and their vision, the ability to connect with people.
I see. That's interesting. Wow, that's very far away in my career about to understand about CEO. So it's good to know. And so for people who want to be a CEO in the future, these are characteristics that you want to develop.
Correct. Right.
Alan, we talked so much about the career, about how amazing you have done in this profession. I'm just curious to learn more about yourself that what do you do for fun? How do you balance yourself after being all those busy years and now you are retired CEO, but you still not retired. You're still working. And so how do you find the balance and what do you do for fun in your life?
Well, I do quite a bit. I'm an avid health nut, so I'm constantly working out and exercising and improving my physical, state. I do quite a bit of reading. I spend time with friends and family. I love being on the water.
That's amazing. How can you turn it off and turn it on with your curiosity? Because I love learning. And I always find that even I do something, I always find that what can I learn from this? But to some point, I feel like I'm just so tired of learning. I want to take a break, but I couldn't turn it off. My brain just constantly working, even I want to turn it off.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, when I say I turn it off, there's all degrees, right? You can turn it into background noise. Look, nobody ever turns it off. I don't, I mean, very seldom do you turn it off for extended periods of time, maybe a day. Look, you like doing what you're doing. And, sometimes you say you can't turn it off. I think subconsciously you probably don't want to turn it off, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you about that. So before we end this podcast, I would love to see if you have any last tips and advice to young professions who could love to advance in this profession, in this career.
Yeah. Rosie, the most important two things. One, be curious, as we talked about. And then second is be intentional. Just be intentional about what you're doing. I remember, it's just an analogy. I remember in today's day, everything is virtual by and large. And so in order to learn, in order to develop, you need to be intentional. You need to intentionally reach out to people. You need to be intentional about reading or intentional about collaborating because people aren't in the same office every day or the same building every day. So you need to be intentional.
I love those two tips that you just shared with us, the last two tips, like having curiosity mindset and also be intentional. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Alan, for the interview today. And I appreciate your time and also appreciate all your successful stories as well.
Well, thank you, Rosie. It's been a pleasure talking with you today, and happy holidays and happy new year.
Thank you. Same to you and your family.